Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a company you almost definitely use every single day, Google. We're going to look at exactly how their quote-unquote free services use your personal data to make billions of dollars, and, more importantly, what that all means for you.
So let's start with the big mystery, right? We use Google Search, we use Gmail, we use Maps, all without ever paying a dime. And yet Google's parent company brought in $264 billion from ads alone. So how is that even possible? Well, the answer isn't in their algorithms or their data centers. It's you. Or to be more specific, it's your data.
To really understand how this business model works, you first have to wrap your head around the sheer, incredible scale of Google's reach. We're not just talking about a search bar here. This is a vast digital empire that is designed to touch basically every corner of your online life. And it all begins with your window to the web. For almost 7 out of every 10 people, that window is Google Chrome. I mean, just look at that chart. Its closest competitor, Safari, is a really distant second. This level of dominance gives Google a front row seat to pretty much everything you do online. And through that browser, where do we most of us spend our time? Well, a lot of it is on YouTube. But you have to see it for what it is. It's not just a video site, it's a data goldmine. Every single day, 122 million people are telling Google exactly what they like, what they watch, and what they care about, one click at a time. Now take all that online activity and stick it right in your pocket. Over 71%. That's a huge number. 71% of the world's phones run on Google's Android operating system. This gives Google access to not just your browsing habits, but your location, your app usage, pretty much everything you do on the go. And the thing tying this whole empire together is, of course, the heart of it all. Search itself. With a staggering 90% of the market, Google doesn't just see what you do online, it knows what you're thinking. Every question, every curiosity, every private thought is logged and analyzed. So the scale is just immense. But how do they actually collect all this data? Well, the mechanics of it really come down to 2 key methods. One you've probably heard of, and another that's way more invisible and honestly a little bit sneaky. First up, the one you already know, cookies. Now, these are just small data files, but it's the advertising cookies that are the really powerful ones. They don't just stay on one website. Nope, they follow you around the internet, piecing together this incredibly detailed profile of all your interests, your habits, and your purchases. But then there's the more subtle method. It's called fingerprinting. And this technique doesn't just track your browser, it tracks your actual physical device. By collecting all these technical details like your operating system, your screen size, even your battery level, it creates a unique ID for you, a digital fingerprint that can identify your specific machine out of a billion others. And here's why that difference is so important. You can delete your cookies, you can block them, but you can't easily change your device's fingerprint. So one of them tracks what you do, while the other one tracks you, digitally speaking. That makes it a much more persistent and powerful way to follow you online. And the end result of all these methods is, well, it's a pretty stark difference in data collection. Just take a look. On the left, you've got the long list of data categories that Google collects, your location, your contacts, search history, what you buy. And then on the right, you have a privacy-focused browser like Brave, which basically only collects what's absolutely essential to function. The contrast is pretty clear. Okay, so Google has this absolute mountain of data on all of us. How does that actually turn into billions and billions of dollars? Let's follow the money. Now, this is a really key distinction. A lot of people think Google just sells your personal data to advertisers, but that's not quite how it works. They don't sell your info. What they sell is access to your eyeballs, and the whole transaction happens faster than you can blink. The system that makes this all possible is called real-time bidding. The instant you load a web page, this lightning-fast, invisible auction kicks off. Advertisers, using the profile Google has built on you, bid against each other for the chance to put their ad in front of you. An algorithm picks the highest bidder, and boom, a personalized ad appears on your screen. All of this happens in the time it takes the page to load. It's kind of wild. So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, so what? I get more relevant ads for things I might actually want? What's the real harm? But the implications of collecting all this supposedly anonymized data, well, they run a lot deeper than you might think. For starters, that whole idea of your data being anonymous is pretty fragile. Multiple studies have found that it's, and I'm quoting here, almost trivial to identify specific people from these so-called anonymous data sets. With just a few unique data points, your digital habits can act like a fingerprint, giving you away completely.
And this isn't just a theoretical problem. Google's data collection practices have led to some very real, very significant legal challenges over the years. We're talking about lawsuits over misleading location tracking, class action suits about collecting sensitive health data, and even privacy settlements over the facial data collected in Google Photos. Now, I know, hearing all this can feel a bit defeating, but despite the absolutely massive scale of this system, you are not powerless. There are concrete, actionable steps that you can take to manage your own digital footprint and seriously reduce the amount of data you're handing over. Here's a simple checklist to get you started. You can switch to a privacy-first browser, you can look for alternatives to Google's apps whenever possible, and you can actually dive into your Google account settings and turn off ad personalization, pause and delete your location history, and get in the habit of regularly clearing out your search data. Every one of these steps makes you a little less visible to the data machine.
Which brings us to a saying that's pretty much become the golden rule for the modern internet. It's a really powerful way to look at the digital tools that we all rely on every day. And it leaves all of us with a pretty important question to think about. In an online world that's built on our data, what is the real price of free?